everyone. Hello, hello. Come on in, come on in, come on in. Thank you for joining Kicking It with Golden Swan Cadre. My name is Karen Denise, aka Golden Bronze, and I'm your host for today. My co-host is Mickey G, and we have with us Mr. Eddie Pratt. Eddie Pratt excuse me, is a husband, a father, and a grandfather. He's a licensed pastor, a relationship strategist, and a transformational public speaker. His personal mission is helping people live a next level life. He specializes in helping people establish strategies for healthy relationships with themselves and others, the prevention and transition from unhealthy relationships, conflict resolution, divorce recovery, and premarital and marital counseling. Eddie serves as one of the pastors of Dallas Life Foundation, the chief advisor for the nonprofit agency Owning My Own Truth. Survivors of various types of abuse are those kinds of people that are in that facility in Oakland, California, and the chief advisor for Behind the Mask Ministry in Berkeley, California. Eddie received his relationship certification from Dallas Theological Seminary, and his undergraduate studies are from Morehouse College and Strayer University, where he obtained a BS in Business Administration. So thank you, Mr. Eddie, for joining us today. We do appreciate it because we know that there are many places and other things that you could be doing, but you chose to spend your afternoon with us, and we're very appreciative of that.
And I'm thankful and again, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be with you guys today. I really appreciate it.
Okay, Eddie. So start us off by telling us, first of all, maybe how you got into relationship therapy. That might be a good start.
Okay. So it was really interesting. Believe it or not, my mother was my first client. My mother was in a very unhealthy, her second marriage was very unhealthy. And so when I was living in DC, she was living in North Carolina at the time. My mother passed away. In fact, March the 7th was the anniversary of her passing. It was she passed in 2018. So anyway, we were on the phone and we were just talking, and I could hear something very strange in her voice. This was not her marriage to my father. This was her second marriage. And when she was talking to me, I could tell that she was just not herself. And so I asked her, I said, what's going on, Mom? And what's, I call my mother, I still call her Mommy. I said, what's going on, Mommy? And she said, oh,
Yeah,
everything
that's all
is
right.
okay. And, nothing really is happening. And she was stuttering. My mother was an educator. She graduated top of her class in high school, as well as she was valedictorian, and she was an English teacher. She majored and she taught special ed for 54 years. So the fact that she was stammering and stuttering and tripping over her words, I knew something was wrong. So while she was talking, I was packing my bag. She didn't realize that that's what was going on. And so I said, okay, I'll check with you in a couple of hours, and I'll talk to you later. I immediately got in the car and drove down. When I got down there, I found out that her husband had been physically and verbally abusing her. She would not admit to the physical abuse, but I could tell just by the way that she was responding and acting. And so I confronted him and slowly began behind his back. And I found out that he was freebasing cocaine and doing a number of other things. And they had foster children that they were taking care of. So I began to find a safe place for her to move to let everyone and alert everyone of her job that these things were going on, so that they could be aware. My cousins that were there, to get them ready, because it was it was probably to get to North Carolina from DC, where she was a 4-hour drive. I got there in 3 hours. That's just how fast I was driving. And so after I
Wow.
confronted him, I let him know that if she called me and there was any kind of statement or anything like that, that he had put his hands on her, he was going to have to deal with me. And the biggest thing that I'm glad that it didn't get physical between he and I, but I had to develop a plan to help her get out of there. And so that's what we did. I alerted the authorities, found a place for her to safely move, and then I told her to put her clothes in the cleaners. She had a lot of clothes. And so I said, put your clothes in the cleaners and don't get them out. He just won't notice what's going on. When you get your clothes out, you'll be taking them straight from the cleaners into the new place where you'll be staying. Temporarily, she was in the YWCA until we found another place for her to go, until we could get him out of there and then secure a new place for her to go move to. And he never knew where she lived till he passed away. So anyway, it was a process of that, getting her to heal from that. She had never been through anything like that before. And so it was a long process. And then from there, years later, when she got ready to get into a new relationship, I counseled her how to get into a healthy relationship. But the second one that she got in after that was verbally abusive. And when she told me about that one, I had to help her back her way out of that emotionally, because she thought that she had a nice guy. You know, everybody admired him. He was a tennis pro and handsome. And, you know, a lot of people admired his ability, his athletic ability and that type of thing. And so behind closed doors, he wasn't physically abusive to her, but he was verbally abusive to her. She came to stay with me in Dallas. Huh? She came to stay with me for 2 weeks, and she ended up staying for about 3 months. And so after she got to a healthy place, then she went back home and she was able to cut it off and began living life in a whole different way. So literally the things that I have been helping people with started with my own mother.
My goodness. What a motivator. What a motivation to start this process. And for a woman who was emotionally and physically abused, to have a man come help her, not only any man, but her own child, which precipitated you into helping other women. That is a tremendous testimony of what you were able to do. And also, I'd like to give you my condolences on the loss of your mom.
Thank you.
That's a wonderful testimony.
Thank you. And so again, through the process of that, I began different trainings, different conferences that I've been to. I started noticing that the court system was not really up to date with the fact that it was always about women being abused, but I began meeting men in because of relationship counseling that I have been doing, that some men had been abused in previous relationships and marriages, but they had nobody safe to talk to about it, you know. And so that became a new leg of relationship strategies, because when men don't have safe places to talk about it, they have a tendency to perpetuate the abuse and abuse women because of the abuse that they received from another woman, be it their mother or a narcissistic mother or a girlfriend or a wife or something that had been abused, and then they were taking it out on them. And so the majority of the process has been with women, but lately I have been dealing with a lot of men that have been through the same thing as well. And so it's really, really complex when you have a man trying to deal with that as well, you know, and them having no place to talk about that. Yes.
So, Eddie, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So, when your mother was transitioning from home to putting her clothes in the cleaners, did she just empty out her closet and put all the clothes in the cleaners? Is that a way? Is that a way for people to escape without being noticed that they're moving out? Or
no, usually whenever I've helped women in this kind of situation, you have to back up from an abuser very slow. You know what I mean? Where it doesn't look like anything is going on, because once they notice that something is going on, that's when you get what I call breadcrumbs. The breadcrumbs are, the way I have defined that is tossing emotional tidbits to maintain emotional access with no intention of changing or committing to change. Does that make sense? So, and it's abrupt. When they notice that there's going to be some change of you moving from them, they either get more abusive or they get more apologetic. There's no gray area in between there. And so, but they tend to start with the apologies. But if they know you're getting ready to leave, it usually gets more physical or more verbally abusive, because they see themselves losing control of it. And so, if you're in a situation where you can grab all of your stuff and leave, then that's a great way to do it. But a lot of times in the situation that she was in, and I think it's case by case, you just have to see what the situation and the circumstances are. She needed to get her stuff out kind of slow. And remember, I was long distance, so I had to get my cousins involved, and I had to keep coming down there where he didn't see me. He knew that if he saw me on a regular basis, he did see me more often, because I had to let him know that I was going to be visible. So that brought some fear in him, because he knew that I was 4 hours away. And the fact that I was showing up on a regular basis tempered what he was doing. But when he would go out or something, like I said, Mom, take these 10 or 15 things to the cleans, because she had so many clothes that he didn't recognize when her stuff was leaving the house. It wasn't until it started getting down to the bare minimum is where we grabbed the rest of it and got her out. But it was pretty much, I'm an organizer. And so I knew that her not being able to be organized like I was, I had to think for her, I had to plan for her and be emotionally supportive for her while she was doing this. Because remember, she's still teaching kids. She's teaching at a high school and still dealing with this at home. But the fact that we had already developed a support system, somebody was always coming by the house where she wasn't spending a lot of time with him alone. Somebody was always calling, somebody was always dropping by. So the support system was always visible every day. There was somebody there that usually wasn't there. So it put fear in him to do anything, because he never knew when one of us was going to drop by.
That's what I was wondering, because at first I thought you were saying she took everything out of her closet to the cleaners. And I was like, that's very obvious.
Yes.
When somebody does that, but you had her to slowly take items. And the reason I'm asking is because in the beginning, when we started Go to Swan Cadre, we started trying to help women figure out how to have a plan to leave, but we changed our initiatives a little bit. But oftentimes that is their problem. They don't know how to leave, how to go about doing it without it being obvious that they're leaving, because they're afraid to leave. Most of the time when they stay in abusive situations is fear. It's the fear of what happens if I leave, or what happens.
I think your screen froze.
Yeah, I think it did too. Sometimes the abusers go from 0 to 60 very quickly when they realize this woman is trying to leave. I think, and maybe you can answer this, I think that lots of times they kill them. If I can't have you, no one's going to have you.
Right.
And you're not leaving me, I'm not going to lose. If I lose, you lose too.
Yes. So that is one extreme. And here's the thing. You can't predict the extreme.
Right.
You can't predict it. You never know how far they will go. So with that, the best thing is, as I said, and as I said, it's a case by case situation. You may have to roll with just grab whatever you can grab and get out.
Right.
In her case, what I wanted was to make sure that she had a support system as she was moving.
Right.
And something about that tempered everything, because remember, this abuse it usually happens in isolation. Nobody else knows that it's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the other thing that usually doesn't happen, and this is something that I wanted to suggest too. When women are going through this, they're not letting another man that they can trust in on what's going on. See, this was about strategy with getting her out of there, so that there was a roadblock to his response. Does that make sense?
Right.
I
Yes.
strategized a roadblock for his response. When I got together with my uncle and my cousins and all of them, I said, we cannot respond in such a way that brings violence, because it can turn around and escalate violence on her.
Right.
What we have to do is set up a roadblock. And the roadblock is presence. Always showing up, always calling, and doing it unexpectedly. That way she knows that somebody is coming by every single day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's going to look like random to him, but it was planned. I literally had a spreadsheet set up for who's supposed to be going this day, who's supposed to be going that day. I was orchestrating this from DC. And then I was in that process as well. But these were men showing up.
Mm-hmm.
Because a man is not going to respond the same way to a man if he's abusive to a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And when he sees
That's
that
true.
there are men present, that sets up a roadblock for the abuse, because already, if his whole thing is abusing women, when men show up, that brings a line of protection right there. And this is what the armor that was set in place.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. And there's some clear cowardice in a man who will abuse a woman. When another man comes, it's mano and mano.
Exactly.
And so there's a lot of strength in that these men are coming to protect. And we don't see that very often, although I'm sure that men are doing that. It would just be good to see it in action.
Yes.
The things that you all have set up for your mother.
Yes. And so the biggest thing that was difficult with the men is said, listen, we cannot go in there postured for violence.
Right.
We have to go in there for prevention.
Right.
The mindset needs to be prevention and protection,
Mm-hmm.
not postured for violence.
Right.
Because the goal is to get her out of there
Mm-hmm.
and then deal with him.
Mm-hmm.
And still then we want it to be a situation where he is dealt with the authorities, but we don't want to look guilty about anything that we're doing, because
Mm-hmm.
once we get on the offense, now we become part of the problem.
Right.
So it was about prevention, protection, and safety for her.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Now, and this was physical abuse, correct?
Physical and verbal. She never admitted the physical with me, because she knew I'm her son. So she figured that I would get physical with him.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I first confronted him, I said to him, if you have put your hands on my mother, I just need to know that you did. And then one of us is going to the floor. Trust me, it's not going to be me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was postured for physical.
Mm-hmm.
He would not, and he was a bigger guy than me, but he knew if I drove down there the way I drove down there, he wasn't going to get like that with me. But I had to, there's something that came over me that I said, wait a minute, I cannot turn this on the offense. And so I had to set the example for the men that I put around, the shield that I put around her. And they all knew how I felt physically, how I wanted to respond to him. He never admitted that he was physically abusive, but I could tell that he was.
Mm-hmm.
I could tell just from when I asked her, has he been physical for you? She never really answered the question, but she danced around it. That was enough. That was enough evidence for me.
So tell me, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I want to know how you counsel people to remove themselves from verbal abuse. You mentioned her second relationship was verbally abusive. And did she remove herself from that situation? And how did you guide her and counsel her to do that?
Okay. So there is I created a personal assessment that I take anybody, whether they are single or in a relationship, whether they're entering into a new relationship, if they are married already and having problems or whatever. I have a couples assessment that I got certified in seminary that the couple does separate from each other, and it takes about 30 minutes to do. But if someone within a relationship comes to me and says we're having problems, I take them through the personal assessment. I take couples through the personal assessment and the couples assessment. If a spouse or a single person comes to me and says, "Hey, I'm having problems in my relationship," that personal assessment has questions that are broken down. I created an assessment that is broken down into 3 parts, and the 3 parts are personal peace, professional peace, relationship peace. Now, those questions are designed to identify 4 things: who you are not, what your principles are, and what your purpose is. Now, by the time I have gone through that process with someone, I will find from their conversation with me, those questions that are in those 3 categories will expose if there's some kind of abuse. So when I took my mother through that, when she got into this new relationship, there are questions in there that ask, well, what are the things that you require in, what are some things that you require for a healthy relationship, as an example? That's one of the questions in the relationship piece. And so I get 5, 6, 7 things that are necessary. But by the time I've gotten to the end of it, I'm listening to different things that are going on in the relationship where I can spot, okay, that sounds unhealthy. This sounds healthy. That sounds questionable, and those things. But I'm letting the person talk so they can get everything out. And then I bring the analysis together, because what I do is I create a personal summary after that, and then a color coded, it almost looks like a flow chart of those 4 things: who you are, who you're not, what your principles are, what your purpose is. In that assessment, I find out if something is going on. Just from some of the questions lead people to cry, lead them to be happy, lead them to say, I'm not happy or whatever. But they're answering questions about themselves that eventually tell me what's going on with the person they're with. So when I took her through that process, there are questions in there like, who's in your circle of influence? Do they add to your life, subtract to your life? Both. The whole assessment is where the revealing comes from. And it's a certain skill that I believe that I have that pulls that information out of people.
Okay.
So even when they're trying to hide it from me, I think that just the way the questions are designed, it comes out. It comes out.
So I have a question with regard to that. So when you find a couple that there's some abuse in there that you have found, how do you move that person, possibly that abuser, to one, admit that that's what's happening, and then move them to a healthier place in the relationship? Or is that even possible? Because that sounds like that's a core behavior inside of that person.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you then move them from abuse to wholeness and to a healthier relationship?
Okay. So here's the challenge with that. Sometimes they'll admit it, and sometimes they won't.
Right.
Now, what a lot of people do, let me give you an example. I'm glad you asked that question. I want to give you a really good example. For the young lady that, and she's given me permission to share this because she has the ministry that I oversee called Owning My Own Truth in Oakland, California. These were 2 twins that were abused by a friend of the family when they were both young. They didn't know that the other was being abused. It happened when they were 7 years old, and they didn't talk about it until they were 23. And so when she started dating someone again, this guy was a pastor. And I said, well, I want you guys to take the couples assessment. He was doing some things that she thought was romantic when it was actually narcissistic and abusive. But because, again, I'm a man, so I can recognize things about men. And I think that this is why women have to have a man that they're close to, that's not trying to sleep with them, that's not trying to get something from them, that is a covering for them. And if you have guys that are that, let them be that, but they need to be just that, you know. Mm-hmm. So anyway, because see, men recognize things about men, you know. Women don't know men like men know men, you know. So he was doing things that looked like romantic things, and she couldn't see it. Let me give you an example. He would tell her, you look really nice. They would be on the phone. You should change what you have on. And she said he would tell me, and I said, well, how did he know that you needed to change? I said, he's obviously looking at you through your window while you're on the phone.
Wow.
Then another situation was he came over. When she got home, he was in the house with flowers and gifts. And so she thought that was romantic. I said, did you give him a key to your house? She said, no. I said, this is another form of abuse. And so when someone has been abused and the pattern has been there, sometimes they don't even recognize what abuse looks like. It's dressed up to look like romance when it's still abusive. He was stalking her. He was telling her what to wear. He was stripping her of her identity. Very slow. It's very strategic the way they do it. And so when I started asking in these questions, and then when he tried to bluff with me, when I had a conversation with him, I just confronted him. And it's very different when a woman tries to take on a man, but when a man takes on a man, like I said, that dynamic changes. Mm-hmm. That whole dynamic changes.
You're right.
So if you're fortunate enough to have a male, and too often what happens when women are in these situations, they're scared to tell their brothers, scared to tell their fathers, afraid to tell men that they may be close with, because they believe that the men may do something physical or violent, and then they end up in prison or something like that. And I do get that. But somebody needs to confront. Some male needs to confront it. You see what I'm saying? Somebody has to confront it, or else they'll just keep doing what they've been doing. And so when I started noticing things weren't right, I said to her, "This is another form of abuse." Mm-hmm. So with that, it took some time for her to come around to see it, but I had to be firm but gentle at the same time with sharing with her, saying, "This is not romance."
Right.
So in the process, I just try my very best to firmly and calmly educate anybody going through abuse what it really is. Because here's one of the things that keep people in the pattern of it. Somehow they get loyal to dysfunction, and they get loyal to the potential of what could be instead of the reality that they're actually experiencing. Mm-hmm. And so when they're caught up in the dysfunction of the potential of what could be, I come in with reality that says, wait a minute, this is not romance. This is not normal. This is not a man that cares for you. This is a man that is slowly trying to control you and manipulate you and chipping away at taking your identity. And so with that, as I said, I just approach it very truthfully. I don't dance around it. I don't dance around it. I come straight ahead at it. But I am gentle and firm with it. That's the best way I can describe it, you know, but with truth. Yeah. So that at least if I plant the seed, it brings about a question in their minds. Is this what I think it is? And eventually, and I've been in situations like this where the women and the men have walked away. Many of them, I have more success with them walking away from those situations than staying in them.
Yeah, that's awesome that happens. I was wondering, once the light bulb comes on, do they exit stage left or do they stay? And I know that some of them go back to the abusers, but it sounds like you have great success that they leave and they stay gone. And do you also help them with a plan?
Yes.
To exit?
Yes. You need a strategy, because if you don't have a strategy and all it is an emotional exit, then that's where everything falls apart. And then you just, you know, sometimes that person talks himself and, you know what, I was just better in this situation. Yeah. So I just recently married a couple where the wife had been through physical abuse with her previous husband. And I walked her through my process, and we walked through it for a couple of years. You know, she was very consistent with the process. We stayed with it, even to the point when she finally got healthy enough to start dating again, and she met some guys, and again, this is where a really good covering from a man comes in that is not trying to have a relationship with you. Every guy she met had to come through me. Every guy. Every time you meet somebody, I need to put them through this couples assessment. If they won't take it, that's not the right guy for you.
That's good. That's really good.
So, well, he's a nice guy. Okay, if he's a nice guy, tell him that I want to meet with him, and we're going to take you, you know, tell him your big brother wants to take him through the couples assessment. See, game doesn't want to come up against knowledge and protection. They don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. They stay where they can continue to play the game. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
When she met her husband, and again, she's given me permission to share this. This is another lady here that has given me permission that I have counseled. And then I did the premarital counseling with her and her now husband. So I walked him through the same thing. And here's what I do. When I bring people together in starting a new relationship, I take the female through the individual process, and I take the male through the end. I don't bring them together initially.
Right.
I take them through that personal assessment individually. And then when I take them through that individually, then I get to know them, their strengths, their challenges, the things that they may have gone through in their childhood, and those different things. So I pull out this stuff, but the couples assessment also asks them a different variation. The reason why I'm so thankful for this personal assessment that I created, because it gives me the backstory why they answered the way they did in the couples assessment. But it helps me also catch the lies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's where the success comes in. But if a guy says, no, I don't want to take that, I don't believe in counseling, that's not the guy for you, because that's somebody looking to stay in isolation. That's not safe.
And that's a lot of guys. A lot of men are in the mindset that they don't want another man. I've had my ex to say, another man can't tell me what to do, and this kind of thing. And he refused to go to counseling.
Mm-hmm. That's a red flag. That's
Yeah, I was finished.
okay.
Yeah.
That's a huge red
Nikki,
flag because watch this.
you have something to
If you
say?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I'll jump in a minute.
okay, watch this. If he was getting ready to start a business, he would go talk to somebody that knows how to start a business, right?
Right.
If he was going to want to go to school, he would go talk to somebody that would give him information about, okay, well, what classes do I need to take to be successful to get this particular certification or this particular degree? If he was going to go buy a sports car, he would do the research and go talk to somebody that says, hey, this is the right car. You might want to buy this car over this car because this gets better gas mileage, or this one is going to get more looks or whatever.
Right.
But when a person will not invest in their emotional and mental health, that's a red flag. That's a red flag right there. Because anybody
I
that
agree.
feels that they are above correction, that's not a safe place.
Interesting. Very interesting.
I agree 100%.
It sounds, this is a strange analogy, but it's like when the roaches are in the room in the dark, the light comes on and they scatter. They don't like the light because the light exposes them.
Exactly.
So that's the same kind of thing, I guess, with these guys. They rather stay in the dark where they can do all the dirt and all the manipulation and everything. And when you shed a light on them, someone recognizes game, or wisdom recognizes game. Is that about right?
That is it. That is it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes.
So, Eddie, I want you to take the last few minutes and talk about yourself.
Okay.
Eddie, Mr. Pratt.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Take the last few minutes because we're approaching 38 minutes. Yes,
okay.
I hear you. I want you to talk about yourself, your business, your book, and all of that.
Okay. Well, I am in the process of writing
You
or
have
finishing.
the floor.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So I'm in the process now
Yes.
of finishing up. I'm doing the edits of one book that I've been working on for about 4.5 years. And it's on how to have healthy relationships. That's actually not the title of it yet. I haven't put that out yet because we're in the process of getting the marketing and website and all of that together. So I will be pulling that out probably by the end of this month. But anyway, it is a step-by-step process to how to have a healthy relationship, how to keep why men and women cheat, how to affair-proof your relationships, how to look for examples. The third chapter is literally what we're talking about today, which is how to move from abnormal to a new normal. And so how to bring people in the mindset of understanding and recognizing what are the steps, what things to look for, to have a healthy relationship. And then the other book is about how to have a healthy marriage. And so I know the reason why I wanted to write 2 separate books about healthy relationships, because I know that everybody's not interested in marriage, but everybody deserves a healthy relationship. And so the first one can be a feeder into that one, but it is mostly about making sure that everybody has the opportunity to get the wisdom and knowledge about how to have a healthy relationship. And so anyway, I counsel couples, singles, people that are transitioning from narcissistic relationships, people that are trying to heal from unforgiveness, giving love a chance again, repairing their marriages or premarital counseling, whatever relationship challenge that exists. I try to offer wisdom that helps them live a next level life. But the biggest thing about conflict resolution that I do is starting with the conflict that you are trying to resolve within yourself first. Because one thing is a fact, too often what happens in conflict resolution, we we're trying to resolve conflict with someone else when we haven't even resolved a conflict within ourselves. And hear me good when I say this. It is very hard to have a healthy relationship with someone else when you're having a toxic relationship with yourself.
My goodness. Wow.
Unrealistic expectations get put on someone else when you haven't even dealt with yourself. And so this is why my mission statement is to help people live a next level life. I believe that when you are healthy within yourself, you can be healthy with someone else and healthy for someone else. But I think that we have to start with our relationships with ourselves first. And a lot of times you don't find out what residue is still there until you get into your next relationship. And so that's why I really believe that you have to, it's a great investment to have somebody in the middle that's neutral, that's not going to take sides, that is going to be on the side of the relationship and not on the side of a particular individual. This couple that I just mentioned that I married, even though I had been counseling the young lady for quite a while, I explained to her and explained to him that I will never take sides between the two of you. I'm always going to be on the side of the relationship. If it doesn't matter who's wrong, I'm always going to point out who's wrong. And then we're going to work through a process to, as long as it's not a deal breaker that we're dealing with, how we can move you guys back towards each other and get through the challenges. Because oftentimes it's something within a person that keeps them bitter or keeps them in a place of unforgiveness or keeps them in this constant tension that exists in relationships. And here's the thing about tension. Tension is always searching for an address. And we are the ones that assign where it's going to reside. The longer we keep it inside, we have assigned it an unhealthy place to live. But if we take it and use it and let it out in a safe place, in a responsible way, now it has found a healthy place to go reside because it has left us, and then something positive can come back inside of us.
My goodness.
But we are the ones that assign where tension is going to reside. So let me end with this. And I've been really pretty much on this thing. I'm watching the time as well. A resolution is not the ball dropping on January 1st. A resolution is a firm decision to do or not to do something. That's what a resolution is.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So if you make up your mind to do something different, your feet will follow. Mm-hmm. But you have to make a firm decision. And here's the great thing about it. Once you make a firm decision to start something, you immediately at the same time have made a firm decision to stop something else.
Right.
Vice versa, if you make a firm decision to stop something, at the same time, you're making a firm decision to start something.
Right. Right.
So when the distractions and when the fear come in and all of those things, when they come in, courage is actually moving forward with the presence of fear, not the absence of fear, but with the presence of fear. That's what courage is. You move forward even though you're afraid, but in that fear, you find a system, a support system that helps you move through it so you're not moving alone.
You know, I love all the things that you have had to say. This has been so inspirational and educational. The things that you have set in place for these couples. There is hope. There are men out there who will stand in the gap for women.
Yes,
that is
there are.
Beautiful thing. So we want to thank you so much for taking your time to spend time with us on this podcast and educate people. I'd love to hear more, and I want to know about your book when it comes out. So, Goldn Bronze is left the building for a minute. So I'm going to say to wrap, we want to thank Mr. Eddie Pratt for being with us today on Kicking It with Goldn Swan Cadre. On behalf of myself, Mickey G, and Goldn Bronze, we want to thank you. ask you to follow Golden Swan Cadre on Facebook and at Golden Swan Cadre, and on Instagram at the Golden Swan Cadre, the official _ Golden Swan Cadre, and the website www.goldenswancadre.com. So until next time, kick it with Golden Swan Cadre. On behalf of myself and Golden Bronze and Mr. Pratt, who has been so gracious to join us, we want to wish you a great day until the next time we get together.
Yes.
All right. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
All right. Take